Right now, there's a broader political fight hanging over pretty much every race we're watching. Can Democrats win back young men who drifted toward Donald Trump? The New York Times reports that many Gen Z men who voted for the president are not happy with him, but they also aren't hearing an appealing pitch from Democrats either. In interviews with 24 young men in half a dozen states and D.C., many said they're daunted by an unforgiving job market, pessimistic about personal matters, and broadly unsure about where they fit into society. Men are graduating from college at declining rates. Their median hourly wage, adjusted for inflation, is lower than it was 50 years ago. And they account for about 70% of deaths from suicide or overdose. And with key elections approaching, many said their political allegiance remains entirely up for grabs. Joining us now, Cornell Belcher, Democratic strategist and pollster at Brilliant Corners Research and an MS Now political analyst. Michael Hardaway is former communications director for Congressman Hakeem Jeffries and publisher of Hardaway Wire. Okay, Michael. So if they're up for grabs, how do politicians respond to all those things I just listed and get them not just to decide to vote in the first place, but get them on their side?
This is very easy. Democrats
Really?
have to stop acting like the hall monitor. Democrats want to police masculinity, and they want to police men and say, well, we want you to vote for us and support us, but we want you to act this way. We want a Joe Rogan of the left, but he's got to be within these parameters. That's not how the world works. And so Democrats have to engage young men and tell them how they're going to improve their lives. We haven't done that since Barack Obama created My Brother's Keeper more than 10 years ago. And he was attacked by some inside the party for doing so. And so if Democrats want young men to vote for them, then they have to speak to their lives and how they're going to improve that.
So, Cornell, should Democrats assume if young male voters are so disenchanted with Trump that they'll vote for them or even vote at all?
Well, no, you can't assume anything in politics. And Chris, let's do a little level set before we go too deep in here. Look, there is traditionally a gender gap in American politics going back as far as, we've been tracing the data. There is women tend to vote more to the left and men tend to vote more to the right. And that is consistent across basically all demographic groups and ethnic groups. So Republicans tend to do better. Like George Bush won men by 11 points. Barack Obama lost men by 7 points. You see, Trump
that's
won
a big
men
gap between 7 and 11, right, though? And that's enough to change the outcome of an election, I would think.
Well, Trump won them by 12 points, but look at what's actually been happening since then, right? If you look at the election data that you've seen right now, you have seen Democrats get closer to men, and even with younger men, right? Trump won younger men under 40, under 45 in the last election. But look what happened in Virginia. Spanberger did really well with men under 45. I think each campaign has got to make a pitch to men, and particularly younger men, and see them as a persuasion group. There's a lot of economic anxiety out there with younger men, particularly younger men of color. If younger men overall are economically anxious right now, what do you think African American and Hispanic younger men are? I think the Democratic Party has to speak to their economic anxiety, but also find, well, to my friend's point, they got to land in a values place. They got to meet these men where they are from a value standpoint, I think, better than they have been doing.
So, Michael, do you see anyone in the Democratic Party now who other Democrats can look at as an example of who's got the right messaging?
Wes Moore is crushing it. Wes is saying that you can both be smart and athletic and a good person and a progressive and be unapologetic in all of those things. I think that he comes across as someone who's just himself. And that's something a lot of young men can learn from. I think that we have a generation of young men between 13 and 25 who don't really know who they are. And they don't really.
COVID didn't help, right?
Correct. Right. And so I think that they need to learn those things. And a person like Wes Moore is someone they can learn from in that way.
Cornell, in California next week, we're going to see 3 Democratic primaries where much younger progressives are challenging much older incumbents. Do young people generally see people closer to their age as better understanding their problems?
You would think that, but then I think Senator Sanders would like a word because he's certainly been able to energize.
But Senator Sanders is unique, right? I mean, I would say,
but
first of all,
But is he unique? I mean, it's to
I was on the campaign trail with him when he ran for president, and everybody in his audience was like young, just about.
But I don't think
young, or were hippies in the 60s.
But I think we lean too much on just an age thing, and I think again, or just a male thing. Look, women candidates have to be able to appeal to these men as well. And again, looked at Virginia, where Spanberger did particularly well, did better among men than we've seen, and particularly young men, than we've seen in some time. You've got to meet them where they are, regardless of the age. What I find fascinating about what's happening in California, and I think you see this across the country, is that younger voters, both men and women, are stepping up and running for office. And I think that's a good thing for us. And look, they have to, because power is never given. And if these younger voters want to take power and want to have a bigger voice in determining which direction this country goes in, they have to run for office. But also, really quickly, they have to improve their turnout, right? The turnout between like those under 25 and those over 65 is better than 30 points. They have to be engaged.
Yeah, and I'm going to amend my flippant response about Bernie Sanders. One of the things that always surprised me when I talked to crowds, and the crowds came out, boy, did they come out for him, was the diversity of people who were in those groups. So Cornell Belcher, Michael Hardaway, we're going to have this conversation as this cycle moves on. Thank you both.